that work?
Yeah, it showed up on my screen.
Okay, awesome. All right. Yeah, welcome guys to another meeting for Concept Art Club. We have like a guest speaker here today, Riley. I don't know if I'm pointing the right direction. Um,
Maybe.
yeah, she'll be having a little presentation for us. If you want to start introducing yourself.
All right. I'm Riley Brennan. I'm also online as Tanjeronie, which is a very awkward username to say, so I apologize. Um, but I'm 18. I go to SVA up in New York, which is why I'm not at Lightbox, sadly. But I work for Studio Heartbreak right now. We're in development of the full short film called The Lovers. And I also recently got a story revisionist job with Andy Kung on Tao, which is being screened at Lightbox. And I'm currently just a student. I'm up in the dorm. I'm pretty much on the same level as the rest of you. But I wanted to I don't know, I wanted to let you know about how it is in that's sort of the industry. I'm not working for like Sony or anything, but in the indie scene, it can give you a lot of great connections. And I think that it would be a great alternative if you don't want to join an internship or you don't have the qualifications for an internship or even just get rejected from a very competitive one. Um, both of our directors for The Lovers, who I'll refer to as Shio Pao because it's a directing group and they prefer to go by that. Um, they both got rejected from a few internships, either from Disney or from Sony, even DreamWorks. And so they decided just to make their own thing. I don't take credit for the idea whatsoever. I'm just working on it as their lead animator and character designer, which is still, I'm very excited to be doing that because it really was fun. Now that we're in the stage of our final film, after the trailer that a lot of people saw on either Kickstarter or Twitter, um, it like what I'm working on is a lot different from what I was working on in the trailer. And I don't think I can show any of that because I'm under NDA. But since I am 18, it started when I was around 16. So they literally just reached out and I was like, yeah, sure. It was started as like a volunteer friend project. And that's really it. So I mean, there I can, if you want me to keep going, I can talk for a while if that sounds good.
Yeah, if you'd like to, could we know a little bit more about, I guess, your process? Because you talked about, I guess, storyboarding now, but you're going into, or yeah, you're going more towards that. But then before you wanted to, you were interested in, I guess, concepts.
Yeah. I originally wanted to go into concept art and character design just because I felt that was what I was good at. Um, but recently I've been diving into storyboarding because either by recommendation of my teachers or just the jobs that I've gotten out of that have been really fun. And I have gotten notes on them being like, are you sure you want to go into character design? Because I realize I may not be as strong in that field as I am in another. But it is still early. I'm still a freshman, like most of you. And so there's a lot of time to figure that out. I feel like people are really on like a tight schedule in their late teens because especially if you're on like social media or something, there is this very heavy emphasis on like being a really good young artist. And so people feel like they're old by 18 and it's like, okay, you're just getting started. It is not that big of a deal. But I can't I got on Instagram when I was like 14, which was an awful idea. Great growth wise because I had that time, but horrible for when I was like 14, 15, being like, I don't want to turn 16. That'll be too old, like to be a prodigy artist. Like it didn't make any sense. I sucked at 14. Everyone sucks at 14. But I think like you don't really realize how new and like how young you are until you're like 18 in college, 18, 19, 20. And like everyone around you is also inexperienced and also really excited to um, get into the actual industry, which is in a rough spot right now, but that's a conversation for another time. Um, I think what made it so, like, I was really happy to be asked onto something. Like the process of going from like starting, because when I was 16, I didn't have like character design experience. I didn't have that much animation experience aside from personal work. Um, so when I was asked to be like, hey, do you want to be a part of a little project? It's like just for friends. It's voluntary. You don't have to do anything you don't want to, you know. And it was great because it's kind of like if your friend asked you to join like a zine or something. Like you just want to have fun with your friends and like be able to make a little project together. That's why people will draw each other's characters or do collaborations. It didn't really feel like work, and I wasn't like really obligated to do anything. So when I actually did start doing like the character sheets, I kind of just went off the rails by myself and did a shit ton. But I don't like. I think being a part of the original team that was like doing the trailer a couple years ago, I was again like 16, 17, didn't know what I was doing. And it turned out great. Like I'm really happy with the trailer, of course, but also I'm very biased because I was a part of it. Um, the final film though is looking really good. We have our animatic done. We did some screenings with some people and got some good feedback. And so now we're moving into the actual like design revisions, any actual animation layouts. I don't even remember the initial question about my process.
Yeah, I
I just
guess
keep going on tangents.
very good. And then for the Studio Heartbreak, I'm like blanking as well, but would you want to talk a little bit more about, I guess, um, how you like were originally brought on, like, because we're talking about like freelance and indie stuff. Are you finding more things like through other people or just for like for your from your network, things like that?
Yeah. The storyboard revisionist job that I got recently was for Andy Kung, who was doing a pilot episode of his own called Tao, and it's screening at the Fox, like the animatic. Um, and I only got that job because we were in contact with him because of Studio Heartbreak. Like he partnered with us, and we gave away like a storyboard workshop that was like you had a discount code for Studio Heartbreak if you got in through them. And it was just like a quick partnership. But he called me back later and he was like, your storyboards on this were great. Like, come do some revisions for me. And so that's how kind of that pipeline forms. But it's not just like immediate. I understand how some people will be kind of confused by that because the startup for me was almost entirely at random. It was me posting some of my work, me happening to be mutuals with the directors, and them being like, hey, we want to do a little fun project. Did like, do you want to help out? I was like the third person on the entire thing. And it spiraled from there. But more people, when you have a project, even if it's voluntary, even if it's not like something that's big or known or for like a big company, if there are a lot of people involved, people will want to get invested in it. Like same thing with zines, same thing with like big collaborations you'll see on social media with people like literally just friends and mutuals doing a project together. Other people want to get involved. Other people think it's fun. Other people want to be included. And that's what kind of makes it as big as it is. That's what happens with all like the guest art stuff. People were like, oh, I want to do this and I want to do like a piece for you guys. And I was like, oh, sure. And it just kind of happened. Like the that's not a great explanation at all, and I know it. But when you have an idea, like the directors again got out of like didn't get into internships, were rejected from a lot of stuff, but they went off and made their own thing. And I know not everyone has the time for that. Not everyone has the funds, the money, the like range. So that's why other people were brought on because they didn't have the time, they didn't have the money, they didn't have the range. But I do think if you have a project that you really want to start, this was from back when they were like 15 and just had like an idea. And so it got repurposed when they were older in college. If you have an idea, write it down, maybe do some like a few drawings for it and come back later when you have the time. There's always going to be a point in time where you will be able to look back on your old projects and be like, hey, I can actually make something out of this now. Even if you want to revise it, my voice, oh my God, my roommate's laughing at me. But even if you want to revise it, even if you want to change it, you'll always have that idea. It's always yours. It's always something that you started that you know that you can build off of. And maybe, who knows, maybe you can make just an animatic for it on YouTube. Maybe it gets views on YouTube. Maybe you have ad revenue. Now maybe you have a couple extra $100 so you don't have to work a week, spend more time on it. It's not really something that you can plan for, but it is something that you can have in the arsenal just to be like, hey, I have an idea, maybe make a pitch book for it later, even though that's a whole process. Dear Lord. But I don't know. It really did just kind of happen. And I feel like once like the Q&A starts, if there's more like specific questions, I'll be able to get more in depth for sure.
Yeah, if anyone does have any questions, feel free to just put them in the chat or if you want to raise your hand to ask it yourself. But
Yeah.
it's really interesting. I asked you to come on also because we have like a lot of freshmen who kind of just like start off like SCAD, not really knowing a lot, and just being like interested in art in general, but like wanting to try and make a career out of it.
Yeah.
How would you kind of, I guess, recommend or give them any tips? Because you already started off basically on the right foot with that. Especially just like going into college already with network and things that you've already are working on. How would you recommend people kind of break out of their shell?
I do think that was in like a really like lucky spot. I think it was kind of at random, but I still struggle with like getting stuff done like timely. Like I haven't been in like a work environment per se. So like deadlines are hard for me to meet. I'm late on some of my homework. I skipped class today. I don't even know what's going on half the time. And so it kind of is just a make sure you're able to manage your time before you start going off on like doing like commission and freelance work, which you don't really get to understand how to time manage until you're in school or like college or like a work environment at least. Because I fully head empty went into everything, and I was doing like commissions, the Studio Heartbreak stuff, and the revisionist job at the same time on top of school. So I was out of my mind.
Oh,
But yeah, it was a bit much. But I think that school, like clubs, are definitely way more important than the actual curriculum, in my opinion. Because I'm in a few clubs, and I haven't even been able to go to all the meetings just because of how hectic everything is. But the homework that you'll be doing, it's good to get it in on time, but if they accept late work, then who cares? I'm being a bad influence. But oh my goodness, I'm sorry about my voice. Holy shit. It's been a hectic week. But if you need time to like for yourself, then absolutely take it. There is no harm in missing a class unless like SBA has a policy like 3 absences and you fail the class. So I'm like on edge. But when you're just starting out in school as a freshman, I don't know if I'm the most qualified to answer this because I'm in the exact same position, but getting the connections is sort of like jumping through a few hoops. Like I would ask for recommendations from teachers, maybe reach out to alumni. I know Julia Scholl is in Pasadena for Lightbox, and she's the one who made the Legend of PP film. And that's a great film. I don't know if she'd answer. I have no idea, but never hurts to ask, to reach out. Like, I do think you have to be a little annoying just sending emails or sending DMs, being like, hey, like, how are you? I'm go to the school that you went to. I really liked your film. And it doesn't have to be anything more than that. You don't have to initially ask for anything. It can just be reaching out, making yourself kind of known, and then maybe start replying more, maybe start asking a few questions. Always ask if they're okay with answering questions though. And there's also a lot of one thing I will never stop like promoting is, even though Twitter sucks more than anything in the entire world, Twitter's the worst platform, especially right now. But there are always job postings on Twitter. And it, like, there's so many. There's like, there was a few for Flying Bark Studio, which makes the TMNT show. There's for Studio Smokescreen, which is no, Flying Bark is the Australian one. But there's always these remote positions that, even though they might not be like fully contract, maybe they're just some freelance stuff, it never hurts. And another thing is doing online workshops, which that's the expensive part. Like, a lot of tuition and stuff can be like deferred. You can defer paying that. So it just feels like you're kind of a student making like money for food and travel. And that's kind of where I am right now. Like, I'm not paying off my tuition dollar by dollar, day by day. I'm going to wait. But I do think online workshops are a great idea. Like Project City is a great one, which is run by Rad Seacrest and Andy Kung and Ethan Becker, who do these workshops every few weeks, even like mentorships. I know the mentorships are like $4,000 though, so don't shoot for that right now. We are all broke in school. But there's like some workshops that are a couple $100. So if you maybe have some in, say, I don't know, I don't want to like tell you guys to spend money, because that's, you're already doing that. I know how it feels to be like, am I going to spend money on McDonald's, or am I going to go get like a $14 ice cream? I don't know. New York is expensive. Don't laugh at me. My roommate keeps laughing at me. Thank you, Miranda. But it's just as like, it's very comfortable in online workshops and these areas where there's actually a lot of professionals, especially if there's talks or like demos by professionals, because you'll be invited into a Discord server before the demo, and then you'll get like the Zoom link, etc. Like, I watched one with Ari Pan, who just did a like 3-hour demo on how to do concept work, and I was in the Discord, and a lot of people I keep in contact with are still there, and they could either be current professionals, maybe like friends of hers, and of course Ari Pan is in there as well. And it's just a very, like, you just have to put yourself in those atmospheres, which doesn't explain anything. Let me go more in depth. But I would say online workshops are a great alternative to art school. I can understand why you'd want a degree, especially because if you're international, like, getting that degree could help you get jobs or help, because I don't know the specifics because I'm not international. I'm from Arizona. But I think if you have a degree, it's easier for you to get overseas jobs. Maybe the company will want to pay for you to stay there longer because of your degree. But if you ever, like, if you're wanting to drop out, I guess, or if you just can't afford it anymore, maybe it's something with international admissions. I think it would be a great idea to do online workshops. And again, it's still expensive, but take like a tuition up in the 6 figures and drop it down to like a couple $100, maybe even if it's for a couple hours, you'll still be in a Discord server with a ton of people you may look up to or already know. Project City, I think Brainstorm School is a great one for all that concept work, especially. I also think there's in-person classes at, like, if you're in California for any reason, which SCAD is in Georgia, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, and traveling to California is a pain in the ass. Never mind, don't go to those. But even Lightbox, just the travel costs are so much, especially in California. So stuff like Lightbox, going to like in-person classes where you can meet other students or like people that are already in Hollywood or that area, like Glendale or Pasadena, where all like the studios are. It's so much to handle. Like, there's so much. Yeah, take advantage of the LA Metro for sure. or just don't go to LA. LA is horrible, but a lot of everything's there, and so it makes everything kind of a pain. Um, Even in New York, like there's not many opportunities up here for like in studio jobs, especially in New York. That's why remote work is kind of like my number one right now. So going into like, how do I explain this? Let's see. Maybe if you have another question, let me know, because my like just if I'm talking about freelance work, it really is just workshops. And maybe I'll link like Brainstorm School and Project City if you guys don't know.
Yeah, that'll be good. And then going off of like the I guess training sessions and everything that you're talking about, do you have anything else that you use, I guess, to like improve your skills or any, because I know like we have some students here who use Blender for perspective things. Um, do you have any tools that you use in your like your illustrations to kind of enhance your artwork, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, for school where we have to learn like After Effects, all the Adobe stuff, I hate Adobe Animate with a burning passion. It's the worst program ever. Every button makes everything harder. It, but my teacher requires us to use it. So it is good to learn other programs. I mainly use Clip Studio Paint just because it's what I'm comfortable with. But it is not an awful idea to, especially Blender. I haven't even learned Blender. It's in like my notes app. Being like, all right, learn Blender. It just hasn't happened yet. I love Clip Studio so much, but I feel like Clip Studio is a very good program for making your art look the same way it would on paper. Like your hand moves the same way almost. Like Adobe Animate likes to mess up your lines every single time. It makes a drawing look awful, even if you know that's not what you did. But enhancement wise, I think I actually go to paper if I'm feeling any art block or any like just issue with my hand, or if my hand's kind of cramping, or if I just can't have any ideas because I'm looking at like a blank canvas on a screen and it makes me want to get distracted. Like, because I have like my laptop and my Wacom, that's on my desk. And then I have like my phone to the side and it's like I'm looking at a screen anyway. I might just check something else or go to the bottom of my laptop screen and check like, I don't know, what's on Twitter. Just it's so easy to get distracted by like if I'm on like a digital thing, it's really easy if I'm blocked that I just get distracted. But if I have to close all that and I'm on paper, it's just I can kind of mess around. It's not as serious. It feels like it's not, I don't feel like I have to do anything because if I go on a digital canvas, it feels like I am actually like I'm obligated to do something. But if I'm on paper, I can scribble an entire page and not feel guilty about it. It's just paper, you know? There's a whole level of like seriousness when it gets to like a digital canvas. I do think that whenever I'm drawing on paper, it's usually with markers, it's usually just stuff I'm comfortable drawing. And it always like it doesn't completely deplete an art block, but it feels like when I go back to digital, it feels like I can do things a lot smoother just because I kind of got it out of my system. Like I got all the warm up stuff out of my system without immediately being distracted by a blank canvas or immediately needing to have like the first sketch needing to be the best one. I think life drawing is a great one too. Like, do you guys have like a figure drawing class like your
Yeah.
first year, like a drawing one? Okay, that's good because I that changed everything. I did not do figure drawing that much before I came into school, and I didn't know like different techniques and stuff. So it was real like chicken scratch or real like straight lines or like contour drawings, and that would be it. Which contour drawings are great, I think, but learning different techniques from someone else is one of the like in figure drawing specifically, like learning those techniques from someone else. Like even if it's something simple like an opposite C technique. Like my teacher is Matt Archambault, who's been doing it like for 15 years. He's great. And my figure drawing has gotten so much better, but so has my composition, so has my proportion work. so has my like specific line work. It's I think figure drawing is just it's something that you can't do it the same every single time unless you're like fully comfortable in your skills or like you've been doing it for a long time. But learning new techniques is something that has insanely helped my art, especially my speed, because stuff's timed, you know? You got to get it done in a certain amount of time. The model is not going to stand up there for 4 hours. It's not going to wait for you to like look on your phone while you're like bored looking at a blank canvas. You have to sit there in a room with people. And so you're even more embarrassed if they see your stuff and it's like you don't like it. So it's like a peer pressure. You have to be good. But wow, I look at like at the beginning of the year and my figure drawing was so atrocious that I'm like I'm glad for art school in that area. But also there's a lot of figure drawing like class, especially if there's a figure drawing club, join it. Oh my goodness. That it's like this is like concept club. Like that's a great one to hone like concept skills. Like being around people who want to be in the same space as you. Because when you're in like freshman year, no one really knows what they want to do. You have like your drawing classes, you have your introduction classes. Some people next to you want to be in like character design, other people want to be storyboarding. Like you're not around people who are in like the direct, I mean, no, not meaning you have to be going a specific direction or this, like you may not even want to be doing concept in the future, like a year from now, but just being around people who have kind of like the same or very similar to you is a great way to find out what you can be doing better. Because if you're in the same room as people and like, what was it? Like, you should never be in a room where you're the smartest person in the room. Like, you never want to be in the room where you're like the objectively best person in the room because then you have like nothing to learn, you know? It's, it's so, that's why I love clubs so much. Oh my goodness. All right. If you have any other questions.
Yeah, I know you post like a lot of character art on your stuff on your Instagram. Do you have like a
Mhm.
process? I guess you go through that.
Do I have like process like speed paints and stuff?
Well, process as in, I know your recent character. Did you have like a lot of, silhouettes or sketches beforehand? You had like variations with outfits, things like that.
Yeah. Um, I definitely don't think character design is like my strongest area anymore because it just kind of seemed like I just knew how to draw characters, and that was kind of it. Like I didn't really know much about cinematography. Um, but when I'm creating a character, I much rather create their dynamic first because creating a character and then their dynamic can kind of lead to an imbalance between the way they look and the like the way they interact with other characters. Maybe you don't have to make a character have any sort of story at all, and maybe you're just making a fun design. That is completely fine. But if you're trying to make a character with a story, it is very like I've been getting into expression sheets recently, and that's been so fun. Like a lot of people are doing expression sheets, and I think a big reason is like Amy Thompson. Like a lot of her, if you know what that is, there's a lot of her like expression sheets that she did on like Spider-Verse recently, and everyone's like, "Oh, those are awesome," and they want to try some for their own. I mean, that's the reason I started doing it more. But yes, I love Amy Thompson. Oh my goodness, she's amazing. But doing expression sheets is a really great way to find out what a character's range is because some characters don't make certain expressions. Like you don't need to make them in every single expression. Some if a character is very monotone, their expressions are going to be very like still very um either like angry or disappointed, you know? If a character is very excited, you're probably not going to see a lot of their disappointed or angry expressions. So you can only focus on what this character's personality is. And these expression sheets can be huge. You can also make ones where it shows their duality. Not every happy character is happy all the time. Like you can show what would they look like when they're sad, you know? So I think that is like you can't really make character design or character expression sheets first in a character design But I mean, even just having some sketches of how you want them to look and then jumping into like maybe a messy expression sheet is like it's a great idea to find out their personality. Outfits stuff, I'm not as great with. For sure, I just put all my characters in baggy clothes because that is what's comfortable and that is what I know how to do, which I definitely need to step out of that comfort zone. But if you're looking for like people with like great sense of like style and outfits, I would like look at like Night Zhang or again Ari Pan, even Amy Thompson too. Like there's a lot of these very great concept artists that have such a good sense of style and like how to dress a character to fit either their story or their world. And I know I put all of mine in modern day. I am not a very like fantasy based or like I don't know. I just don't explore time periods as much as I think I should. But I will always recommend that people do expression sheets. It's like the number one way to also upping your consistency. It's a great way to do that.
Cool. And then I guess going back to the I forget what they're called. Like you just talked about them, but like the master classes.
Yeah,
Before opening the floor more, where would you mainly recommend to find them for like students here? Like, is there a certain website or is it mainly just from, I guess, the artists themselves?
I think a lot of artists, if they're going to teach a master class, they'll usually post about it. Like I found out about Irie Pan's workshop just because she posted, um, and like usually put the link in their bio or something. But if you ever see like the Zeet Studio sketch stuff, maybe join one of those every once in a while. Because from what I know, or from like what I've experienced in those, is that it's a very like, even though it's like usually quiet, like it's usually a very personal thing, like where people just get to, like they just get to draw with the model. It's themed. There's usually a demo artist. You can always message the artist after and be like, hey, that was like, it's something to get you talking to them. And that's, again, one connection, maybe not a very strong one because it's just off socials. And that's why I think like the specific master classes where you get to join like a Discord or something are way better. But yeah, I think the artist just posts about them. I'll like find the links to like Project City and Brainstorm School because those are great ones. They always have like a lot of guest artists, or even getting in touch with like Brad Seacrest and Andy Kung and Ethan Becker are, again, great way. You get to join like Project City Discord. Everyone's talking there. It's just people sharing art, other students, other professionals even. So because usually there's professionals wanting to branch out. So it's like someone in concept, even if they're a great concept artist, maybe they want to take some storyboard workshops and you're like, oh, I already know this person, but they're going into a different area. Like everyone's always wanting to find some more range within their art. And so master classes, yes, I'll find. Is there somewhere I can post the links like afterward? Or like, do you want me to just email them to you?
I guess we can put in the chat for right now. We write down a lot of stuff, so we'll for sure have it. And then people here
Okay.
will have direct access, at least for the moment.
Okay, I'll find those. Oh, I can't type while in the meeting. How about I email? Is there, like you said, you have like a like club Discord?
Yes.
Okay. How about I email you like the links afterwards, and then could you put them in the Discord for me?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, that'd be great. That'd be awesome. Okay. I'm trying like full screen again. Okay, I got it. Um, there's usually a lot of master classes at SCAD. Yeah, you'll get like emails about master classes if they're at your school. Take as many as you can, or as many as you're interested in. You don't have to take all of them. Like if you're in like, I don't know, sound production, you don't have to take a sound production master class. I don't know why you need that, unless that's what you're interested in. But I know it is like hectic. School schedules are so irritating. But if there's one where you have free time or you can schedule it ahead of time and make sure your teacher knows you're either not going to be in class or something, go ahead. I think master classes are a great idea.
If anyone else has any questions, feel free to say something or drop in the chat. But
Yeah.
I think for now, you got everything.
No, I was like jumping around a lot. I covered quite a bit, but also sometimes very vaguely.
Yeah, you're all good.
Can you talk more about upping your consistency with drawing? That is something I struggled with for a hot minute. I kept redesigning old characters because I couldn't figure out how to draw them consistently without like disliking it. I think consistency is a very important thing if you want to go into character design and concept, because you have to be able to continuously fit a certain world or a certain atmosphere. And again, like you have to perpetually draw one character consistently. Um, like their outfit, the little details, everything, especially if you're going into like game character design. Those are very intricate designs that you have to be able to keep remembering. I think with that, you would have to take more, like keep kind of notes about your character, break them down, make sure to kind of highlight their small details, like making character sheets for games or like concept sheets for characters in games, or even objects and props in games are very, very detail oriented. Like if you'll see some of them, you'll see them highlight maybe their rings, maybe their like things on their belt, or why they're there, or like what's on their staff, the little designs carved into it and whatnot. But just drawing them over and over again is kind of like, some people don't have the time to do that. I think specifically sketching their features is a, like you don't have to completely paint this character over and over again. But if you can sketch out their most important features, like everything from their, in sort of a gesture, doing gestures of the characters that you design can come, like it helps my consistency so much. That and expression sheets, of course, but that's definitely for like if you have to paint a character over and over again, I would say just do like the expression sheets in line, or go all out, paint them. I'm not the boss, but it's, I just, that repetitiveness of gestures specifically will tell you what you're most comfortable drawing, what you can draw the most consistent in the least amount of lines, and so you'll know what to focus on or what to take more notes on. There was another question. What was it like to, what was it like to adapt on the style of projects you worked on? For me, the style of the lovers is essentially in my character style because I get to design them. So it was a lot easier than another, like any other project. But for Tao, doing the revisions, I still had to adapt to the character style that they had, but more loosely. Luckily, it was not very complex, but it was still something that I had to like get a few sketches out in order to do it. Usually, I would just sketch a few times, check in with the director and be like, hey, like, do I need any notes on something? Because when you're being told what to do, they will directly pick out what you're doing wrong and make sure you get it right. Because, of course, they're hiring you. They want you to be able to match what they're looking for. They hired you for a reason. They're going to pay you for a reason. So they will most likely tell you what it is that you need to focus on. And then I would just say more sketches. It's sometimes it's a pain, but sometimes it's not too difficult, especially for something like revisions. Like that's why a lot of jobs, like in storyboarding, especially, you start out as like a revisionist or like someone doing values or someone editing it, and then you move up to doing your own boards. And luckily, boards have a very loose style most of the time, so it's not too harsh on following the model. But I know people, um, other animators in Studio Heartbreak did come to me for more notes on the character designs, because there was some things I weren't like, that they struggled with, that I wasn't fully like detailed enough on, like especially like the hands, or like where like the tail met the skin, and it was something that I had to make more references for. So just as long as you're detailed and we're able to get feedback from someone, I think adapting to a style is a like, it's more of just like a task. You just You gotta do it, you gotta figure it out. But you're able to pinpoint what you're doing wrong, I guess. Well, quote unquote wrong. To get better at coloring, did you do a lot of like, studies from photos or movies? Surprisingly, no. I had not done a lot of very cinematic studies. I think like I hate coloring with a passion. Coloring is one of those irritating things for me to do, and I know a lot of people find it like a very calming thing. I love fast gesture drawing, and I think that's why storyboarding is something I'm gonna go into. Um, because even though it is like less detailed and not much of a gesture, and you still have to, it's still time consuming. It's time consuming for the reason that there's a lot of them to do, not that it's a slow process. But coloring, I do think, like referencing, always, I think referencing colors is a great idea because even if you're not directly studying that image, if you want to use a a reference of color, like there's everything's on Pinterest. That's the only reference site I use. It's the only reference site most people use. We lose hours of our time on Pinterest. It should be a crime. But there's always like you always see like a cool color reference, even if it's kind of basic. Like a character has a similar skin tone to a character you have, and you're like, oh, I like when they're in that lighting. Maybe color drop a few things from there, blend them together, try them out. Just doing some tests. Maybe change the direction of the lighting, or just kind of even if you're looking through references, you kind of familiarize yourself with how shade and lighting kind of works. You know, like most of us by now probably know that if you're in sunlight, it probably gives off a bluish shadow. That's usually just a gray tone, but it color theory works that way. I'm again, I hate coloring with a passion, and so usually I'll just go find like a reference on Pinterest for something similar that I like, or maybe I'll choose one lighting reference, one color reference. So like if it's harsh lighting, but it's like red, I'll be like, oh, I want to do harsh lighting in a different color, something simple that you can just look back on. Sorry, sure, there's another question. Um, Studio Heartbreak. If I got how I got the job. Um, ooh, I didn't talk about the younger part or the lower part, but how it felt to be a younger person joining a professional project. At the time, it wasn't professional. The directorial team just kind of reached out to me as like mutuals, and they were like, "Hey, we want to do something fun. If you want to join, that's cool. No worries." Um, it was like completely voluntary, and this was like before the trailer, so they were just doing some sketches and stuff. Like, hey, we want to see your take on these characters. Like, if you're cool with that, and I was like, yeah, absolutely. Because again, it's kind of like asking your friends to join like a zine. Like you want to do something fun with people and other artists you look up to. But when the team did start getting bigger, and I realized that I was like one of the younger people on there, I was nervous because since I was one of the first people they asked, they gave me the title of lead animator. And then there were more experienced animators that came to me for like questions. And I was like, oh, like that's a problem. So it worked out in the end. And I really liked how like my shots came out. But I learned so much from people on like I didn't even know how to do timing sheets correctly. I was an idiot. I was just doing it for fun, and then it spiraled into something like really big. And so I was like, oh, okay. But it was a very good atmosphere for me to learn. Like it wasn't like a lot of people have these horror stories with their first jobs being like they were overrushed, they were underpaid, they were like constantly like either the directors always wanted these certain changes and it was kind of hell for them. But because it was people that we kind of already knew and that we were all kind of familiar with, and it was a very friendly atmosphere. Like we weren't on any deadlines with the trailer. Um, it was like it gave me a lot of room to make mistakes and learn. And like I got to check in with the directors. They would give me a lot of advice, and then I would be able to check in with other animators that I worked with, and they they were so helpful. One of them worked for the Line Animation, which is like a commercial animation company at the time, and one of them had worked on like Naruto, and it was such a I cannot express enough how lucky I was to be in that position. Because again, a lot of people have like very bad experiences their first time working with other people. But I mean, that's not like the average, I guess. But I've heard so many of those stories because those are the ones that get highlighted over the, oh yeah, I had a good time. Like you hear more about those. But it felt it was very nerve wracking to be younger and in the presence of all these people because I almost didn't want to ask for help because I was like, I should know how to do this. And so I would spend like, I would just look at tutorials and stuff and be like, okay, I still don't get it. So, but when I did start asking for some help, they did end up just teaching me a lot of stuff I knew about animation. And I accredit that to me getting into a couple schools just because at that point I had a demo reel. At that point, I kind of looked like I knew what I was doing because of their help. So yeah, that was a good question because I haven't talked about that a lot. But yeah, if anyone has any others, let me know.
Yeah. If
But that
there's
looks like it.
Yeah, if there's nothing else in the next few, I guess, minute, we'll be stopping recording. Actually, I'll stop it right now. It's kind of chill.